The Chargers made news over the weekend, signing safety Tony Jefferson officially to their 90-man roster. And now the question becomes, can he actually make the team?
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 9 seasons, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for always making us your first listen, and to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Well, Daniel, Chargers signed Tony Jefferson after an impressive minicamp tryout. We'll see what he brings to the table, but I'm going to tell you right now that Tony Jefferson is going to make the Chargers 53-man roster. We also got to hear from Derwin James and Coach Harbaugh. Derwin James calling Coach Harbaugh the most powerful leader he's ever seen. And then, of course, Jim Harbaugh throwing it right back around saying, hey, just be like Derwin James. Whatever you do, just be like Derwin. And then, of course, we hear all of those sentiments echoed by Justin Herbert. Don't let this time away distract you from the work that we've done in this offseason so far.
Yeah, I thought it was important. I thought it was cool that Justin Herbert went out of his way to kind of call on his team to get something done during this time off. Just because they're away from the team doesn't mean the work stops. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. David, we knew that the Chargers were trying Tony Jefferson out. And it was a cool story and an interesting story, and a story where it's hard to know what to expect from the guy that they're getting. Because you're talking about a player in Tony Jefferson that retired already from the NFL, didn't play at all in 2023, played sparingly in 2022, and now is trying to make a comeback in the NFL, something that's really, really hard to do after taking a year off. And now he's signed to at least the 90-man roster, but that doesn't mean anything. It's not a guarantee that it'll be on the opening 53-man roster. But when you're looking at this roster, David, I can understand how you come to the take of, this guy's going to make the team. Like, it's a hard thing to do, but when you look at it, it's not very far-fetched to think about.
No, it's not. And the reason why I feel so strongly that Tony Jefferson is going to make this team is you look at the depth behind Derwin James and Alohi Gilman, and that gives me the answer right there. It's a second-year undrafted free agent in A.J. Finley who played sparingly. I think his play was up and down for the most part. And then it's J.T. Woods, the former third-round pick, who has really not been able to get on the field at all, and it's for one kind of obvious reason. The guy cannot tackle. And so the second reason I feel so comfortable with it saying that is that Tony Jefferson understands this defense. He's played in this Baltimore style of defense, so he knows what's going on. That really puts him in a leg up situation because he knows where to be and he knows when to make the plays in this defense.
And he had some of his best years playing in Baltimore, and in his time in Baltimore, he spent time with Jesse Minter, who's now the Chargers' new defensive coordinator, so there's obviously a history there. In 2023, he spent the year as a scout for Chargers general manager Joe Ortiz. And at first, I was kind of like, is this, him doing his boy a favor, right? Just like, hey, I'll get you a tryout. I know you're trying to make a comeback. I know you very well. So obviously, they're very familiar with the player that they're getting. He obviously played under John Harbaugh as well for many years. Had some of his best seasons in Baltimore. But at the same time, like I said, it's very hard to do. And it's not a guarantee by any stretch that he's going to make the 53-man roster. But like the two positions you could probably make the easiest argument for it are interior defensive line and safety. Yeah. Because you will need a competent player behind Alohi Gilman and Derwin James, both guys who have struggled with injuries in the past before. So to have that, it's not a given that he's not going to make the team as much as many players put into his situation would be. So I'm super interested to see what he looks like in training camp. And Derwin James was one of the biggest advocates for him to actually get signed to the roster because he talked with the media last Thursday, and we'll get into some of his other comments too. But one of the things he was asked is, do you think that the Chargers basically should sign Tony Jefferson now that you've seen him out on the field with you in the tryout setting? And what he said is, yeah, for sure. And the other interesting thing he said was, it allows me to move around. Reading between the lines, David, it kind of seems like he's saying, with JT Woods and AJ Finley, I might not necessarily have as much freedom to move around, because guess what? If Derwin James moves into the slot, that's great. If they want to play him at edge rusher, that's great.
Yeah.
You still need two dudes back there, right? So it's like I think it's very telling that he's saying that, and also kind of gives more credence to the fact, like you're saying, that he's going to make this team.
Absolutely. I think when you get somebody like Derwin James to say something like that and to give you that level of endorsement, I think it's got to feel really good. But also, Derwin James is not going to sugarcoat things, right? Like he wants a teammate back there that he knows that he can trust, that he's going to be where he's supposed to be, that he's going to be able to make plays. And obviously Tony Jefferson was able to show Derwin James that he is going to be capable of doing that in the short few days that they were able to play on the same field together in minicamp. So obviously we'll have to see what training camp brings to the table. That's when the pads come on. That's when the real football starts getting played. And that's when all of these questions, I think, will be providing the answers in those moments in time.
Well, I'm not going to sugarcoat it either. This is a dude who wasn't playing his best football at his time of retiring, playing with the Giants, got cut from the Ravens.
Yeah.
So he has a lot of ground to make up, and you're hoping to see even a better version of him than you saw in 2022, which is the last time he got into an official NFL football game. I mean, it's similar, Alex Leatherwood might not have retired, but he didn't play it all last year either. So it's like there's a lot there as far as the Chargers really leaving no stone unturned. I think at worst, the worst case scenario, though, is you have a dude who knows what this scheme is, who's familiar with some of the things that they're trying to get done from his time in Baltimore. At the very worst, you're getting someone who should be able to help some of these defensive backs in the Chargers defensive backfield get up to date, get up to speed with this new scheme under Jesse Minter. So I think there's no downside to this. I just think, will he play special teams? Like, is he going to do the things you have to do to be able to make an end of a roster spot, right? And how high up in that depth chart can he go? There's another signing that happened. Yeah, I mean, legitimate questions for sure. And I think there's legitimate questions about the Chargers also. Another guy they tried out, Praise Olatoke, a sprinter, a Nigerian Scottish sprinter, part of the International Pathways program that they've also signed to their roster now. And this is a true wild card, David, a dude who really has no experience playing American football in his lifetime other than playing for club football at Ohio State, whatever that means. I mean, to me, it sounds like intramural almost. Like, I don't know how much you're going to get from that. But another kind of just like Joe Ortiz being Joe Ortiz. Let's sign this sprinter and see what can happen.
Hey, man, I mean, this guy, the one thing that we know that he brings to the table is world-class speed, literally. I mean, this is a guy that got put on the map because he can run extremely fast. And, yeah, he's got good size, too. He's 6'2", 220 pounds in that range. So he has the kind of size that you're looking for. But, like, man, there's so much you have to learn at the wide receiver position. You have to learn how to catch the ball. You got to learn how to run routes. You got to learn how to set up release packages. You got to understand leverages. You need to understand what the defense is trying to take away from you. And to have to start at this point in your career, I mean, it's just such an incredibly difficult thing to do. But with the International Pathway program, I mean, he's not going to count against the 90-man roster. And if he's able to get to the practice squad, there's some decisions that have to be made at that point in time. But he has a huge uphill battle to climb to even get to that point, Daniel. I think it's going to be really tough.
Really, really tough. And especially now because receivers come into the league so well developed already for the most part, because they're doing 7-on-7 and passing leagues and stuff from such an early age that they're getting so many of those nuances down at such a young age, which is kind of where Quentin Johnston was hurt because he played running back so much growing up. Trey ended up being a receiver and kind of still working his way through that. But he was the Scotland Athlete of the Year in 2019, legitimate athlete. And to give you kind of an example of the speed, he ran a 100-meter dash because they don't really do 40-yard dashes for anything other than football. He ran a 10.27 in the 100-meter. Tyreek Hill's best official time in the 100-meter is 10.19. So not very far off. And like Tyreek Hill, obviously 4.2 guy. You're talking about a legitimate 4.3 guy, and that's just showing, hey, Joe Ortiz, literally the anti-Tom Telesco. I mean, we're talking about barely getting Jalen Guyton on the roster, and now you're talking about Darius Davis, obviously Telesco drafted, but it's not just him. It's DJ Chark, right? Another guy with a 4.3 speed. Now you're bringing in Praise Olatoke. Like, they're adding a bunch of speed during this offseason, and now you have also Ladd McConkey, who's a 4.3 guy. So you got to love that. But I got to talk about what Derwin James is saying about the leadership of Jim Harbaugh and how it's unlike anything he's ever seen. ever seen, but also Jim Harbaugh turning around and being like, hey, basically, if you want to know if you're doing something right, look at number 3, and he's going to tell you that, and much more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about FanDuel, because summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, and more, and you can bet it all on FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's one of the best things they have going all year. That's $200 that you can use to bet on everything from the Finals MVP to who's going to hit one out of the park. I love all of those things, but right now, I'm locked in on my Ice Cats. Tuesday night, a chance to bring it home, at home, the Stanley Cup Championship, and they just got waxed on Saturday night, for lack of a better term. But I like them to come back. My favorite bets for that, the Panthers, -1.5. I think it's a very tight game. I think they get an empty netter at the end. You can get that at +198. Or Matthew Tkachuk, the dude, at +200 to get his first goal of the series as an anytime goal scorer. And all you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. David, let's continue on to some stuff coming out of last week's practice, because let's be honest, we're not going to see a lot for a very long time. So we still plan on getting into our buy or sell show on Wednesday. We hope to get some fan mail stuff on Friday, because it's been a little bit since we've gotten Athir and the other great Locked On Chargers everydayers on the show to participate. But I want to talk about what happened last week at the end of Chargers mandatory minicamp, especially getting to hear from Derwin James, getting to hear from Jim Harbaugh, again, Justin Herbert. And Derwin James had some powerful words about Jim Harbaugh. You can tell he's bought in. You can tell he's locked in. And like, to me, these guys match each other on kind of a football soul mate kind of level.
Yeah,
they just seem like the same type of dude. And from the very beginning, this is the dude that Jim Harbaugh has talked about. Like, it's always been Justin Herbert and Derwin James. But when he was asked about his relationship with Harbaugh, he said it's growing every day. Every day I just try to be the example, set the standard, be here every day, be present, and not just be here working hard, pushing the guys. And the relationship has been amazing. Every day he's been pushing us. He's the most powerful leader I've ever seen. And David, I think when you're hearing something like that, it really resonates for a guy in Derwin James that's not much of a sugarcoater.
Not at all. I mean, to hear that come out of his mouth was a little astonishing to me. I mean, honestly, like I know Jim Harbaugh is a great leader of men, but Derwin James seems to be that type of guy who has been empowered by great leaders, because that's who he is. He is a phenomenal leader himself. He's a guy that is that vocal leader. He is that guy in the field that leads by example. He is that guy that's getting in his teammates' face and trying to, get them up to his level and bring them up to his level. So to hear him say that about Jim Harbaugh, I think honestly just makes me feel really happy too, because of all of the coaches that the Chargers have tried out the last several years. I don't know if you had anybody saying anything close to that about those head coaches as Derwin James just said about Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, and I mean, Derwin James went out of his way, and he's a consummate professional. He said, hey, the coaches we had last year were good, and we didn't execute, right? And he basically went out there and defended, his coaches for a big portion of his career. But the thing is, he said is, but it's different. Like, this is different. And he said, I would say when Jim Harbaugh walks in the room, he lights up the room. Everybody is full attention. No matter what you're doing or what you've been doing, it gets your attention. It means something to him. And you can just tell, like I said, on a football level, these guys just get each other. And I just think that Brandon Staley's words were great. One of the best press conference, maybe the best press conference I've ever seen by a brand new head coach and a first-time coaching.
For sure.
We bought in, but at a certain point, it starts not to ring true anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas Jim Harbaugh is going to be Jim Harbaugh 8 days out of the week. Like, that's just, he doesn't have any other choice. That's just who the dude is. And I just thought, this is the latest person telling us this about Jim Harbaugh. And I think the other big thing here is just like him talking about Jim Harbaugh getting out on the field and doing it, right? And just the amazement that he has that Jim Harbaugh's out here pulling 3 or 4 plates around.
Yeah, he's on 3 or 4 plates.
Yeah, like at his age, which, Jim Harbaugh probably takes some offense to, but...
Oh, sure he does.
Yeah, for sure.
But Jim Harbaugh's 60 years old, and he's pulling, according to, other places, these are 100-pound plates.
Hundreds and hundreds of
300 plus that he's dragging, that's impressive, okay? That is impressive.
And because they're football soulmates, of course, Jim Harbaugh had very similar things to say about Derwin James. And it was just really funny how he did it, because he's gone out of his way to praise him before, but he says one of the things that hit him during this minicamp was, okay, guys, do whatever Derwin James is doing. He went on to say the way he goes from meeting to meeting, the way he communicates, and also everything he does. Just, that's how simple this is. It hit me. I've been here a day and a half on the job watching practice. And it's like, coach, can I wear a sweatshirt with a hoodie? Is Derwin? Just look at number 3. Look at number 3 and do everything that he is doing, and it's going to be very good for you. And I just thought that was awesome, David. And like such a true thing. And to me, the big message here is just like, leadership is great from the top. And everyone has said there's been no mixing up the message. What you're hearing from the top, what you hear from Jim Harbaugh, you hear from Jesse Minter, you hear from Greg Roman all the way through. But the other part of it is too, is it's on the players as well to lead and coach themselves. So to have Derwin James be that guy for this team, I think is so huge because you're getting the half from the coaching staff part of it. But to have someone like Derwin James to fully implement it and to fully on his side get the players to fall in line, I think is excellent.
Hey, it's great that the message isn't getting mixed and the coaches are doing their jobs, right? They're getting the information, they're disseminating it down. But Derwin James is the leader on the football field, which is where the games are played, right? It's not played on the sideline. You got to play it on the field. And so you have to have those examples, those leaders on the field that galvanize the players. And that's what Derwin James is. He has been that since he was a rookie, since he came in as a rookie. You know, it's not, some guys have to earn respect. And I think Derwin James earned that respect so quickly that he was a leader in his rookie season. He has been nothing but that since, and he is that to this day. So having a guy like Jim Harbaugh co-signing on Derwin James, I think just strengthens that image of Derwin James on this team and on the field.
And the thing is, too, is it's like he doesn't want guys coming up to him and asking him all these different questions, right? It's like, hey, if you have a question of what you should be doing, ask yourself if Derwin James is doing that. And if Derwin James isn't doing it, you probably shouldn't be doing it, right? And that's just, it's as simple as that. And I'm glad you brought up the point about him being a leader his rookie year, because I remember him getting up his rookie year at the podium and saying, I'm a leader of this team. And then Melvin Ingram, the other most vocal leader in the last decade, he said, okay, rookie, like, I'll let you know when you're a leader. And then he had to kind of go back on that just because Derwin James was that dude from day one. So to have that guy on the field to be in partnership with Jim Harbaugh is awesome. And I think this next Jim Harbaugh quote tells you exactly why it's already starting to work and the culture is already starting to set in. And he said this. When talking about ending practice early, he said, when I say we're stopping early, okay, we're cutting 30 minutes out of this practice or the weight session. I just watch them do more. They do more and they want more than what they would have done if I had scheduled out. Basically saying like, it's actually better than what I would have had them do. Player led, 30 minutes short, and then you watch it becomes a beaver dam of activity. The receivers and the quarterbacks are throwing and it just hits me. Okay, they get as much or more or better work doing it this way. And David, I don't think these things were happening before. I don't think this is an accident. I think we wondered how this team would turn into the team that Jim Harbaugh wants it to be, and I still think there's a ways to go there. But this is how you see those things and those roots start to really plant and really dig in, and this culture start to build from the bottom up.
It comes from the work, right? It comes from getting on the field and absolutely doing it. That's what it's going to have to be, right? You can't get the type of results that the Chargers want, that Jim Harbaugh expects. The expectations are sky high. To meet those expectations, you have to put the work in, and you got to do it when nobody's watching or nobody's telling you what to do or how to do it. That is where and how the Chargers are going to get where they want to go, which is racking up a bunch of wins, getting to the playoffs, and go earning that first Lombardi trophy that they have not been able to capture their entire history of their football team. So Jim Harbaugh is trying to instill that from the very beginning, and it seems like the players are taking to that like fish to water.
And the thing is like, I played football through a junior college level, right? So I never want to compare anything I did to this. But, like, I'll tell you one thing, man. Like, you get done with conditioning, right? And they say, hey, we're going to cut it short, you know.
I'm out of here.
I'm gone. Like, you know, and it takes a special kind of person and drive to make it to that level, obviously. But to have, you know, the coaching staff doing what they're doing and, you know, trying to use their time most efficiently and saying, hey, you guys have done so well that I'm going to give you a little bit of time off and we don't want you to push yourself too hard. And for the guys to just be like, not just pat themselves on the back and be like, hey, we did it. Like, this is our celebration, and be like, no, we're going to go spend an extra 30 minutes. We're going to go spend an extra 45 minutes, I think is awesome. And it goes to just what we're saying about, hey, at a certain point, there has to be a mending of the coach's leadership and the player's leadership. Yeah. And he's saying, hey, you know, don't get me in trouble with the NFL, right? I know how long I'm allowed to practice, but like these guys are doing it on their own. This is player led. They're going out and doing it. At the same time, though, this is an important stretch coming up because the Chargers minicamp was the last thing we're going to see for at least a month before they hit training camp. And what I absolutely loved was Justin Herbert getting up in front of this team at the last practice, showing how much his leadership has grown and saying, look, I know it's your time off. I know you need to relax. But if you don't do what you're supposed to do, we're going to waste all the hard effort that we just put into this offseason program. And that's why I'm telling them they need to go work and not let it go to waste. And I absolutely love that. So we're going to get into that and why Jim Harbaugh said it's really not time for vacation and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Dave, let's get for more as we wrap up this Chargers mandatory minicamp and the press conferences we got out of it, including maybe the longest Justin Herbert press conference I think we've ever seen from him, which I think isn't saying much, but I think shows some growth in the leadership and just maybe a more happier, maybe a looser Justin Herbert we're seeing at the podium these days, to say the least, right? But calling on his team, right? Like Jim Harbaugh pushing him to get up in front of this team as a leader and send them the last message that they're going to hear over a month plus, I thought was really, really awesome. But also make sure you guys are checking out Locked On Sports Today, first ever national 24/7 sports streaming channel, which you can find on YouTube and subscribe there or on the Amazon Fire free TV channels app. But that is something you're just not getting anywhere else. 24/7, you're getting coverage of every sport, but you're also getting the expertise that only the Locked On guys that know their team every single day can bring you. So make sure you guys subscribe to Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national 24/7 sports streaming channel. Dave, this is a different Justin Herbert, and I think there's been kind of glimpses in times that we felt like Justin Herbert was loosening up a little bit, and it's not as if we've kind of crucified him for his lack of leadership, and we know that he's kind of a leader by example type of thing, but we've seen Jim Harbaugh and these, words to the wise after practice, guys getting up and giving a message to their team, and Justin Herbert's really, really sat with me when talking about what these guys should be doing over this next month plus, and this was the message. I wanted to share that with them and talk about this next month being the most important month where we're away from the facility, we're on our own, not to give up what we've already put in, and to make sure that we're doing everything we can so that when fall camp comes around, we're ready to go. Because if we want this team to be the team that we want it to be, it starts now. And it starts when we're on our own and having that high level of loyalty and dedication and integrity to be able to carry through. That's the longest answer to a press conference question I've ever heard from Justin Herbert.
And that's shortened quite a bit.
that was shortened quite a bit. I was paraphrasing there, right? And he said he praised them for what they've already put in as well. But David, like to see him and kind of the full circle of him growing, going into this season right now, right? His 5th season in the NFL. It was awesome to see. And I thought a very important message.
I agree. And honestly, what comes to mind is I think it was a victory speech after one of these games. And Coach Staley is saying, all right, guys, don't come back till Wednesday and don't work out at all. And Justin Herbert's like, wait, you should be working out. And then Staley reiterates, no, you shouldn't. And so it just goes to show you, like, this has been inside Justin Herbert like the whole time. Like the work ethic's been there. Like, and now I think Jim Harbaugh is just pushing him to vocalize that and put that out for everybody to hear. Not only, just see it, right? And see him working on a daily basis and putting all the extra time and coming in early, staying late. Now it's him vocalizing it. Now it's saying, hey guys, like you've seen me do the work, but now I'm telling you, I need you to be accountable to what we've done and not go piss it all away while you're off. You have to take this seriously because we have serious goals. We have serious aspirations that we want to achieve. And it's going to take the time that you're away, that you're not in front of anybody, where no one's holding you accountable, for you to hold yourself accountable. So when we get back to training camp, we can keep going and we can pick up where we left off.
Yeah, I think it's a very important, message to be sent to this team, because he did say, hey, it is time to get away from football a little bit, right? It is time to kind of relax, but also don't let it all go to waste. Like there is a balance that has to be had. And it was really funny because somebody asked Jim Harbaugh, like, hey, is this the time where you push your players to go on vacation and have family time and do all this stuff? And this was his answer. It's definitely the time to do the right amount of things. There's some guys that need some fat mass to come off of their body. That's going to help them. The recommendation is going to be to do that. That's going to help you. That will help you. So whatever the right amount is, we'll be able to assist in that. So that was very telling, because it's like, hey, should they go on vacation? It's like, maybe some should, but some are a little fat right now. Like literally, that's what he's saying. It's not to be rude to any players, but like that's the from the horse's mouth. He's saying, hey, some of these guys are a little fat and have to come back in better shape. And so I think that is important. We know with Ben Herbert, right, there's no secrets. Everybody knows what everybody's doing. So I think that is another part that should be able to drive them a little bit in this next kind of break that they have, to be doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And then Justin Herbert's over here saying, like, hey, we'll find a parking lot. If you want to get work in, there's a parking lot. There's a spot that we'll find to do it.
Yeah, I don't think there will be any shortage of colleges or high school football fields that would say no to Justin Herbert wanting to throw and work out. I don't think he's going to have any issues with that whatsoever.
And he's hardwired to do it, man. I'm sure he loves to get up to Eugene and fish and do whatever, Justin Herbert loves to do, and cook brisket and all that stuff. But like, what Justin Herbert loves to do more than anything is play football. And even like Jim Harbaugh said, like, this is vacation. Like, playing football is vacation. Like, this is what you should love.
Well, he's all in Southern California. You're in vacation. Yeah.
There's no other part of like that I think would correlate more to any specific player than that message than Justin Herbert, because like Justin Herbert loves football, and this is what he does for fun. And so I just think that totally on the same wavelength there. And I just think it's an important message. Like, what you've done can be lost during this time.
One of the other things that you brought up to me that I thought was really, really interesting as well is that it seems like, according to Jim Harbaugh's message there, is that he has an individual plan for every single player. Like, it's not just a general message. It's, hey, I this is what you need. This is what you need. This is what you need, down to the, just specific attention to detail that we've been seeing as a huge theme this entire time Jim Harbaugh has been the head coach.
Yeah, and I mean, like, they can't ask them to do specific stuff, but it's like every player on a player-by-player basis is going to get a recommendation of what they should be doing during this time off. And I just wouldn't want to be the dude where he's saying, hey, maybe you should lose 5 to 10 pounds. That comes back 5 to 10 pounds heavier after these next, 5+ weeks, whatever the time ends up being.
Yeah, you're going to have to answer to Ben Herbert. That's a scary individual.
And I think literally the stare of Ben Herbert is going to be keeping these guys up, and they're probably not going to get as rested as they should. But what they're going to do is make sure that ass is in shape when they come back, because you're not going to want to be with Ben Herbert. And like, there's a ton of like unknowns on this roster. There's not a ton of spots that like there's a lot of guys that are on the bubble going into training camp. So I think, the competition that Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh have brought to this organization right now are going to be holding people a lot more accountable during this next chunk of time than we've seen in the past. But another great thing that we heard from Justin Herbert was basically him saying, David, that he swung that big thing around and got Shane Day back in the building. We talked about this a little bit on the Thunder Down Under podcast. If you guys are missing out, because we're 3 days a week right now, make sure to check out the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. Make sure to check out Chargers Unleashed. 2 hour-and-a-half shows that me and David have put together. That's like 6 shows worth of Locked On that you guys can find out there with some great guys putting out some great Chargers content that is totally worth checking out. So shout out to those guys. But David, Justin Herbert said he wanted Shane Day back in the building. Shane Day's back in the building, and I don't think we've ever kind of seen Justin Herbert flex those executive muscles.
No, and I'm really, really happy to see that happened. You said when the question came up of who I thought was best for the position, Shane was the number one guy, and I'm really glad to be working with him again. And I've said it before, if your $260 million quarterback wants a particular quarterback's coach, go get him. I mean, it's not hard. Like you already know they have an established relationship there. They had some success there together as well. So I'm glad that Jim Harbaugh is bringing a coach along that Justin Herbert wants, that he's had success with. And, it's just a good business decision at the end of the day.
If Aaron Rodgers can carry around the corpse of Nathaniel Hackett to New York, I think that Justin Herbert deserves Shane Day in Los Angeles. I mean, it's the guy he had his best season production-wise with in 2021, a true champion of Justin Herbert. And it just seems, again, another kind of feather in the cap of the thought that Justin Herbert is a different Justin Herbert as we go into this season, a looser Justin Herbert, and a Justin Herbert that's not afraid to let his voice be heard. And if that's the Herbert we're talking about, I'm really, really excited to see it. But that's going to do it for us on today's show. Make sure you guys are back here on Wednesday for the Chargers buy or sell, getting into the biggest storylines and overreactions. And you can make sure you never miss the show by subscribing or following for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listening wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding us on all of our social media. You can find us on Twitter at LockedOnLAC, where we'll put a post out to get your buy or sells on the show. You can also call into the voicemail line to get your buy or sell on at 323-524-7924. But we also post the show every day on Instagram at Locked On Chargers, on our Locked On Chargers Facebook page, and on our personal Twitter accounts for me at Dan Talk Sports and David Drogmeyer at Dro Talk SD. But I love where this team is heading into this no contact period. And if they can keep working the way they are right now, I have no doubt that this culture of Jim Harbaugh will be very present in the year of our Lord 2024. So make sure you guys are back here on Wednesday for the Chargers buy or sell. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.